In this video, we are going to talk about Bob Chapek backing out, canceling his appearance for Destination D. Wow, you guys, this has been a hot topic. We are going to break it all down up next. Welcome aboard to another episode of Orange Grove 55. I got my fantastic friend and collaborator, Mr. George, Disney Family Man 23, host of the show on OG 55, Citrus Corner. How you doing today, George?
I'm doing good. Glad to be back on. It's been a while, and what a way to come back with a discussion topic like this, because this just kind of came out of nowhere.
This is really, really wild. Now, I do want to say real quick that Dre Vash Sky will be joining us. Actually, here he is. Boom, right there, Mr. Vash Sky. How you doing today, Dre?
Doing pretty good. Hopefully my signal comes in clear. If it doesn't, just, boot me off.
I think right now you're pretty good. You're good to go.
You're pretty good. You're pretty good.
Right. Yeah. Well, let's hope it holds up.
Let's hit the ground running. If you can let everybody at home know where they can find you on social media.
Best place to find me is at Vash Sky on Twitter. It's right down there. And just like it's spelled. And if you want to see me, I'm on Freshly Squeezed at Orange Grove 55. Your source for juice news and info, squeezed fresh right from the Grove. So that's where you can find me.
Perfect. All right, so we are discussing Bob Chapek, Disney CEO, backing out of the Destination D event, which I believe is this weekend, right, fellas?
It starts tomorrow.
And Chapek, he's too busy. He can't make it. So, Dre, you have, from what I understand, some material in regards to some setting a table on this, right? Is that correct?
Yeah, sure. So it looks like, and look, I just to preface, we don't mean to drag anybody down. We don't mean to, drag anybody through the mud. We're just responding to the story as it has transpired. Okay, just putting that out there. But it appears that Walt Disney World News Today put out a article suggesting that the reason why Chapek wasn't showing up was because fans might heckle or boo him during that appearance. The reporting was a little bit flimsy. The way the article wrote it made it sound like he wasn't attending, according to sources, and then here's all the speculation about him getting booed and a couple of other events that would indicate or lead credence to that idea. They put that out. Disney, I got to be honest, didn't respond in the best way. I believe, let me just get the name here. Representative from Disney, I believe it was Jackie. Let's see, it was Jackie Whaler. Okay. Put out a statement to Walt Disney World News Today and said, quote, "Bob has a conflict in LA on Friday night and couldn't make it back to Orlando on time. Your post is ridiculous, and you've really stooped to a new low by making all this up." Now, listen, if it was just a correction, I don't think it would be nearly as big of a story. But because of the kind of nature, the aggressive nature of it, specifically ridiculous, and then the ad hominem attack added on to that, as in you stoop to a new low, as if to say that they've stooped to lows before. I don't know. This sounds, as far as their statement in response, it sounds a little bit petty, but what do you guys think?
Well, real quick, George, this isn't the first time Disney has been kind of aggressive with WDWNT. I don't know if you guys remember a few years ago, even before Chapek was CEO, Tom, the founder of WDWNT, reported that there were some changes coming to the Tiki Room, and like Moana changes, and something with the Country Bears and what have you. And Disney, the official Disney Parks blog really came after him. Even using puns like toucan play at this game, and remember that whole thing. Mm-hmm. Disney kind of has a history now for the past few years of really coming after WD D23WNT. It's kind of interesting. George, go ahead. What are your thoughts on this, brother?
Well, I think it's kind of interesting of how Disney is approaching these certain issues, because even going back to how they projected themselves with the Scarlett Johansson lawsuit, it's like that comeback. It's like, when an issue arises, Disney's not usually having that typical type of way of handling it. It's like they're coming, like snapping back aggressively. And I think that's where a lot of people are, because they're not used to Disney having that manner. But it's almost like Disney is like just fed up with everything. So at every little thing that's thrown at them, it's like they're just not even waiting, and they're just snapping back full guns blazing right at the opening gate of everything before it even escalates.
Yeah, and I will say this. I guess Bob Chapek was on a podcast. I don't know. I think it was today or maybe yesterday. I'm not really sure. But he answered actually this question about, hey, why aren't you going to be at Destination D? What's going on? The fans are talking about it. And his response was this, quote, "I'm sorry. I had every intention of trying to make it this year. As you know, I've made the last several, and I really love that event. Unfortunately, this year, given the new job and the tugs I get from several different areas, it's impossible for me to make it. But I will be there in spirit," Chapek said, "and we'll watch the event live stream," but said he may be doing it from 50,000 feet, implying basically he'll be on a plane. But here's the thing. I think that if the statement out the gate was that, I think we'd be good, because I think what Chapek said actually hit the tone perfectly as how they should respond to this. I think he came off sincere. I think he came off genuine. He started off saying, "Hey, I'm sorry. It's just that, hey, I hope you understand. I have a new role now, and I'm being pulled in a million different directions. And this is just the reality of my current job. And I'm sorry. I'll be with you guys in spirit. I really wish I could be there." I think that the tone that he set with that statement was really, really great. Dre, I mean, what are your thoughts on that? Do you kind of agree that should have been the statement from the get-go?
That should have been the statement from the get-go. The problem is with Disney's mishandling of, and George alluded to it before, not just with the Scarlett Johansson thing, but it brings more attention to it. It brings, it lends more credibility almost to Walt Disney World News today that they're responding to him in such an aggressive manner. We talk about it, with some other, topics, through discussions and so forth. We mentioned the term over target. This sounds to me, just with the aggression implied here and the ad hominem attacks and so forth, that maybe Tom was over target. Maybe Tom, maybe his report was accurate just due to the level of aggression shown on Disney's end in their initial statement. Now, Chapek, I think, very well cleaned it up and didn't add any ad hominem attacks and did a fine job. But the way they went about the initial statement, it's not a good look. This is not how you conduct yourself. And I understand Walt Disney World News Today and them have their issues, but for them to air those grievances out publicly, that's just a bad look.
Because usually how Chapek actually did announce that's exactly. Usually Disney has that way of just making it publicly to all. They don't single out a specific person, whether they had made the quote unquote rumor or misinformation. Despite that, Disney just makes a public statement regardless to everybody saying, "Hey, this is what's going on." But for them to actually call out WDWNT, like in the actual statement itself, yes, I get it. They may, to the best interest that they don't really have all the information at that time. But as I said, it's kind of like a new path for Disney to approach that manner. But kind of going off of that, I wanted to ask you fellas, I've been to several Destination Ds before, and there were times Bob Iger wasn't part of it, and neither was Tom Staggs or what have you. It didn't really matter if they were there or not. It went on. Everything went on. So why is it now? Because, again, quote unquote, Bob Chapek is the CEO. He has to be there. He has to be present. Otherwise, if he's not, there's some sort of issue. Here it is. Because none of that ever was mentioned when Iger was CEO.
And here's the thing, George. because people, this is the bottom line, and I'm sticking to this. I mean, this might not be the case for every person, but I think the vast majority of fans don't like Chapek and his personality. So everything he does is seen through that lens. So it's all bad. Bob Iger, we could literally, if Bob Iger was a CEO enacting the reservation systems, the magic keys, and all this stuff, it wouldn't be a problem. But it's because Bob Chapek is doing it. They don't like Bob. It's more of an issue, like Bob Iger didn't go to a lot of Orlando events. My buddy Showcase, a buddy of Vash's too, he would always joke around with me with that for years, how Bob Iger would always go to the Anaheim events, but he would really missing at the Orlando events.
Yeah. The only time when I went to the Destination Ds, more so, even the one in California, when they held the Destination D in California, right, it was just the president of D23. There were Imagineers there, but the CEO and sometimes the chairman of parks would show up, but it wasn't a guaranteed notion that they were going to be there.
Let me say one thing too, and this might look. Sometimes it's like kind of hard to kind of look in. A lot of people just want to say Chapek and Disney, but I got to be real completely honest with you guys. I mean, like, as a Disney fan, I'm embarrassed. I am truly, truly embarrassed. I mean, the fact that, let's just say what WDWNT is reporting is the truth. Let's just say that Bob Chapek, the CEO of Disney, is avoiding a fan event because of fan behavior, because he's afraid fans will boo and harass him while on stage. That doesn't make Chapek look bad, you guys. That makes our community look bad. I'm embarrassed that the CEO of Disney can't even get on a stage and make announcements and give us, what's supposed to be a fun event. Can't even do that because the fans might harass the guy on stage. I think that's abysmal. You don't have to like Chapek, but the fact of the matter is, we all have to be, as fans, constructive in our criticism. And that's why I love what we do here at OG55, is that we are fair and we are constructive. But just the booing and all this nonsense in regards to Chapek is unacceptable. This doesn't serve anybody. I don't want Chapek hiding away. He's the Disney CEO. I want him out and talking to us. I don't know.
And it does strike me that if they would have to go to the lengths of how they do with the Hall of Presidents, because every time you go into the Hall of Presidents, they have an announcement and they say, everyone, please keep your opinions and your wording to yourself. I mean, for them to actually have to say that for an attraction to people who are on vacation, and to then possibly now have to say it at these D23 events to grown adults.
Yeah.
I mean, that's something that you would have to do in like an elementary school. It's like, you really have to tell grown adults to say, please keep your unkind words to yourself.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, it's a Disney event, for crying out loud. It's like,
it's supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be fun. But what do you think, Dre, overall thoughts and everything?
Oh no, I when I initially heard the announcement of Chapek actually live in person at Destination D23, I was actually quite surprised by it. It's like, why put the CEO out there? I mean, there's a reason why Iger didn't show up to a lot of these things, is because, he's very image oriented and so forth. And in the event of D20 Destination D, I should say, that could just very well be, hey, look, I'm a California guy. I'm not flying across the country just to attend, a fan event, of this nature. And so I'll save my appearances for D23 Expo. But I was actually very surprised that they would have Chapek out there, because I think it's pretty clear what people's thoughts on Chapek actually are at this moment. I mean, he's a very controversial figure. Let's just let's just put it out there. And in Walt Disney World News today's response, they bring that up, that look, I mean, you've got people of Hollywood that have disagreements with him. You have Imagineers now that have voiced their consternation online, and we've seen that petition, right? We saw the layoffs that happened over the events of the Pandy. I mean, he's a very controversial figure. So I like I said before, I was very surprised that they would even put him out there. But now that you placed such emphasis on it and now pulled him back, I mean, according to Disney's statement, it wasn't the fans that it was the reason for him not showing up. So I do agree, Orange Grove. I mean, there are more constructive ways to actually have your opinion heard. We heard in the Walt Disney World News Today article that I guess October 1st, when Bob Chapek was out, he got booed and heckled there, which is a weird modality, right? It's like you paid to come in, you're on Disney's own property, and then you're going to heckle the guy. I mean, it's just mixed messaging. That doesn't really move the goalposts, guys. And I think the same would have applied had that same thing happened at Destination D23. But it's look, there's no reason to have him out there. There's no reason to cause all this kind of drama and just kind of aggregate these things up. It's not going to be constructive for anybody. I think maybe pulling back Chapek a little bit, having his name and his decision making attached to other things to kind of improve confidence before putting it out there would be a smarter move.
Well, let me ask you. Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, just real quick, I was just going to say, it kind of reminds me of the Kathleen Kennedy situation, actually, in a lot of ways, because sometimes announcing and pulling back is worse than just not announcing. So when Kathleen Kennedy came out like last year and was like, we got like 14 new shows coming out from Star Wars, and then Disney Plus Day comes out and it's like, we got nothing to show you. It looks bad, right? Or we have a project and now we're canceling said project. Sort of the same thing with Chapek. It's like, if they just wouldn't have had him on the books in the first place, it probably would have been better than having him on and then removing him. But go ahead, George. I do apologize, sir.
Oh, no, you're fine. I just wanted to ask you guys now, because again, from being at these Destination D events, it would be like to showcase whatever the overall theme was, but it would never be too drastic of announcements. Now, normally when they have the CEO of the company and or the parks chairman, it's for some sort of huge announcement. Being that if Chapek was supposed to be there for a specific purpose, do you think that depending on if there is any announcements, we'll find out this weekend, that depending what those announcements are, could that have been placed to say, hey, there could be potential uproar from the fans, especially directing right at Chapek, who is making these announcements live on stage?
So what you're saying, George, just to kind of clarify, what you're saying is it possible because he was going to be there that there's going to be some sort of controversial announcement, like maybe they're closing a ride?
Yeah, closing a ride, or maybe changing over a ride or something. Because normally that usually comes from the CEO. So I sort of like how Bob Iger made the initial announcement for Galaxy's Edge, and then it moved into. Normally, when you have the CEO or parks chairman present, especially at a Destination D, because I read a little bit of the description of what this is, it's more so showcasing for Walt Disney World and the 50th and the future plans ahead. So it just makes me wonder if there's supposed to be some sort of announcement moving forward that was supposed to be announced by Chapek, and they're looking at it like maybe, should this actually be said right now by Chapek live at an event with all fans sitting in the ballroom?
Yeah, what do you think, Dre? That's an interesting theory.
It is an interesting theory, and one I hadn't previously considered. Going into this, my thought was, okay, we're seeing a lot of announcements as part of Disney Plus Day. We saw that Lucasfilm maybe not have had the greatest showing, and then one of our viewers that was, because I was a part of a live show, one of our viewers chimed in and said there might have been disagreements with Lucasfilm as far as revealing that kind of information in the way that they did, because I think they were looking for a venue setting to do it, and that led me to think, oh wait, this was all about D23 Expo and it didn't show up, and now we have to get these announcements out by a certain time, and how are we going to do that? What other venues are we going to use to do that? So that's why you have like Josh Giamaro coming out at IAPA revealing the Toontown information, right? That I think previously would have been done at a D23 Expo, which was supposed to have taken place this year. Obviously, we know what happened as to why that didn't happen. So that leads me to believe that maybe there were announcements that were, to buttress up into your point, George, that leads me to believe that maybe there were announcements that were coming as far as part of Destination D, that maybe they even, were setting aside for D23 Expo, or maybe pulled back, and maybe that's why Chapek's not gonna be there. I mean, there was definitely. I think the whole scheduling conflict thing is a little bit of a cover, and it's there's definitely something going on here. I don't know what the magnitude of those announcements at Destination D are going to be, but it sounds like maybe they had the idea of announcing some things in lieu of D23 Expo at that event, and maybe, like you said, Jordan, maybe they decided to pull back.
And because I do believe, I don't know if it's going to be every panel, but they are actually doing a live stream of the event with certain panels, and they've never done that before with Destination D. And I'm thinking, well, if it's just for the history of Disney World, and it's like, okay, that's nice to do a live stream, but this is something that I'm thinking that they want to showcase further than just the people who bought tickets live there. And I'm trying to like put everything together. And now with, again, them announcing Chapek was supposed to be there, now he's pulling out. Now, just as you said, Vash, that, to fly all the way to Florida just for this event. But if he was already originally on the schedule, again, why would you fly all the way to Florida just to make a quick announcement? So that's why I'm thinking, is there something more that was supposed to be for this event?
Well, and our friend over at DSNY, Jack, reported today actually that there's also going to be some news in regards to the 100th anniversary of the Walt Disney Company coming this weekend.
Interesting.
So that could have, if what you're saying is true, George, I mean, there could be a huge announcement regarding that. And maybe you're right. Maybe the announcement might be a little controversial. And maybe they don't want Chapek being the front guy for that, I mean, because he's already kind of getting a lot of heat. And it's interesting. It's very, very interesting.
These are some interesting stories, and it's. I just think it's very interesting how all these things have manifested in this very short period of time. Not only with this event, but with the Toontown announcement at IAPA. That was kind of a weird venue.
Yeah.
To hype up, and Josh Giamaro playing a central role in that, and now it looks like Josh Giamaro will be the front guy for a lot of these announcements at Destination D. It's kind of a fascinating time to watch.
And I was so close to actually getting a ticket to this. I was so close of going, but in a way, I'm kind of glad now because I wouldn't have packed styrofoam, just in case. So it's like that's like my body shield.
I see.
Well, now I have a question for you guys, because every Disney CEO has a different kind of style, a different approach to leadership. Michael Eisner was very much trying to be like Uncle Mike, kind of like another, not replacing Walt Disney, but sort of in the same vein as a Walt Disney. He'd get up and introduce the wonderful world of Disney and kind of do that whole shtick, right? Bob Iger was a little bit more Tony Stark, billionaire, kind of smooth guy, and Chapek, that story is still yet to be written. But do you think it's possible? Because Chapek doesn't really like the public on stage. Like, he's not a public speaker kind of guy. He just not. And that's fine. Not everyone is, that's fine. Do you see a future with the Walt Disney Company with Bob Chapek leading it where Chapek sort of runs the company, right? But like it's the individual figureheads of each department who are the face of those departments. So we're not going to see Chapek necessarily at parks panels and stuff like that. It's just going to be the parks guy tomorrow, or maybe, or events like this, Destination D, we'll just see tomorrow. And maybe for the studio stuff, we'll just see Kathleen Kennedy or Kevin Feige. Do you think Chapek is going to play a more backseat role than Iger did in regards to visibility? Or do you think he'll eventually get on board and be kind of like what Iger was?
I think it really would depend on the CEO, like at the time. Like if you are one as like Chapek, who, isn't really good at speaking in front of large crowds and what have you, then maybe they can have that notion to have somebody then take over, as you had mentioned, OG, in their individual departments or what have you. But then I think if you also were to have somebody like, who would have been like Tom Staggs or Michael Eisner, that is like more, in the public eye, want to be in front of crowds and what have you, then maybe it would be okay to say, hey, you know what? I don't mind stepping on stage.
Yeah.
And because, I mean, if you even look at it back in the day when Michael Eisner approached, Paris, he had things thrown at him and, words being called that you couldn't even, figure out what they were saying because they were speaking in French,
The French people were very passionate that day.
Yes. It's like, So it's
Wow.
like, but he still went forward. So, when you kind of look at it both ways, it's like, and it is a shame, it is a pity, but if you're going to take on that role in that sense, you also have to kind of know like how much that you would have to take as a CEO.
Yeah.
Because unfortunately, even though it may not be your fault, it's all going to fall on your shoulders one way or the other. And it sucks. It really does. Because as you had mentioned how many times, OG, it's not just one person that makes these decisions. It's a collaborative way of saying, hey, D'Amaro is part of this too. And just like how he's going to make these announcements, he's part of it as well.
Well, that's what bothers me the most. It's not that I love Chapek. I really don't. If I was the board, I wouldn't have voted for him. I do get frustrated though with the pile-on kind of mob mentality that a lot of people in the fan community have with this guy, where everything, everything is his fault. It's pretty frustrating. But Dre, what do you think about Chapek's style? Like, is he going to be kind of a shadow CEO? And I think these other department heads are going to kind of be the face of these various units, or
I think it's very clear that Chapek is looking to kind of, because if you look at the kind of Iger tenor, he definitely did distribute power amongst the various division heads and kind of not really, he wasn't really about power centralization in the way maybe Michael Eisner was, whereas I think Chapek is a little bit more of that kind of Michael Eisner style and taking a little bit more of a hands-on approach when it comes to especially big projects within these divisions and these within these studios and parks experiences and products and so forth. I think for me, it kind of seems like he's biding his time and kind of waiting for the precise moment to make a more active appearance and be out there a little bit more than he is now. I think right now it's just been so tumultuous. It's been so many things have gone on, and even WDW News Today kind of alluded to that. Like, hey, as soon as this thing was announced, Destination D, the Scarlett Johansson thing happened, and that with the events that and the controversy surrounding that kind of invited its own kind of friction and kind of heat on the CEO position. I think he's kind of biding his time and kind of going like, what venue should I step out and really make my presence known, get myself attached to big projects and big new, futuristic ideas for the company, and then kind of work on kind of building up that presence, as the front man of the company. I think he's kind of waiting for that to happen, and it looked like that was going to be Destination D, but obviously that's not going to take place.
Yeah, it's not going to be the case. Maybe D23 Expo, which is next summer.
That's what I'm thinking.
Less than a year away. He'll come out and make a big splash. I think
he has to at that point.
He has to, yeah. And this is part of the frustration I have, is that I want to, Chapek is a newly minted CEO of a company that we all love dearly, right? And the thing I'm frustrated about is, like, whatever the reason, whether he really doesn't want to get booed on stage or whether it's really his scheduling, it's frustrating because I did want to see him on stage, not because I'm like so drawn to Chapek's speaking abilities, or I don't really, it's not that. It's just that as Disney
CEO, it's a shiny head.
Right, it's a shiny head, right? But like, I just want to see more from him. I want to learn more about who this man is, because I feel like he's still very much a mystery. And I am frustrated that now, again, another event's going to pass. He's not going to be there. And when I would have liked to really have gotten to, it sounds cheesy, but gotten to know the guy a little more. That podcast, though, I mean, he came off really genuine. I mean, I think that was the best thing he could have done. With that, because that
and I was going to say that too, because if you look at a lot of things that Iger was attached to with a lot of these documentaries and behind the scenes thing, and Chapek never really got to showcase his moments for the public, as you said, to get to know him and personality wise, because it's usually the only time you see Chapek is when there is an announcement to be made. And that's why I kind of put two and two together. Well, is there something really supposed to be mentioned here, because you never really see Chapek other than that.
Right.
We think about those big moments like Bob Iger coming out for Star Wars Galaxy's Edge and saying, there's going to be two, you know, that whole thing's a meme now and it's this big old thing. And I think Chapek is looking for that kind of recognition. I think he's looking for that kind of association because right now I think people associate him disproportionately with like this kind of man behind the curtain, this kind of, you know, puppeteer and stuff like that. He's making all these cuts, doing all these changes, and he's kind of this evil figurehead. But we don't really know the personality of Chapek. We don't really know him, you know, kind of subtle nuances, what makes him tick and so forth. So I think he wants to go ahead and do that, but he's got to kind of position it at the right time because, you know, it's been a very controversial time for the Disney company in general. And if that's not handled correctly, he might never win that reception from fans or others who might be, critiquing him.
Yeah, Tron Light Cycle Run 2028, folks.
Perfect.
2028, let's do it. I'm hyped.
2028.
Now I actually I'm gonna try to clip it and maybe I'll do a video on this so I could show everybody. But I actually sent John Campea a super chat, not just a couple days ago actually, asking him about like, you know, just overall about Chapek, like how do we as fans like affect change in a positive way. And I want to share that with you guys, and I will. I'll try to clip that and maybe make a video of it or something, or we'll do like a discussion. But in that video or in that clip, he had a very interesting comment, and I think it kind of rings true. And I think a lot of fans need to kind of keep this in mind. He said that as much as he doesn't support Chapek, because John Campea is not a Bob Chapek fan, you know. Yeah.
Here we go.
God, I sound like a Bob Iger Dick Rider.
Hey, you don't think so, huh?
Not at all. Not at all. But he said in that clip though, he said when he was answering the question, he was like, well, as fans, we really are outside looking in. And he said, we don't know all the ins and outs. None of us are in the boardroom, in the halls of Disney. And what looks like one way from the outside might be a completely different situation when you're on the in. And I think that we should all kind of keep that in mind when fans are kind of demonizing this guy. You really don't know this. We really don't know the circumstances. Even people that claim they're insiders and what have you. I mean, very few people have access to the Disney board. You know, this is a very elite group. It's one thing to know what's happening in the parks. It's another thing to have like direct knowledge of what conversations are being had with Iger and Chapek and C-suite, right? So I think that all of us as fans really need to kind of understand that, like, we don't know everything, you know, and there are
keep that in consideration.
Yeah, just take it into consideration because it might seem like he's the villain, but we really don't know the situation. We don't know what's at play here because none of us really have any, you know, access to that,
and if you want to make your, you know, if you want to make your criticisms or your opinions known, there are better ways of doing it than, you know, booing the CEO on his own property. That's a weird, like I said, that's a weird modality. But vote with your wallet first off, and respond to those surveys when they come. That's the best way to do that.
Exactly. No, Dre, you hit the nail on the head. Vote with your wallet. Vote with your wallet. Like you said earlier, Dre, like you're gonna pay $200 and something to go to Destination D just to boo Chapek. What are you doing? Like, do you think Disney cares about?
And that's what I had mentioned to you guys. It's like at the end of the day, you're still feeding Disney in that well-oiled machine, so they get the last laugh. You're still paying them, whether they agree with your decision making or not. You're paying into it. So it's like it's in a sense they get the last laugh.
Well, they do, and you're not like when you do that, you're not constructively moving towards any kind of meaningful change. Like if you're really unhappy, you have to let them know constructively, like through voting with your wallet or through, like Dre said, those guest surveys, you know. But I feel like a lot of fans don't want to do that. They want to just kind of keep going and spending money, but then bitch on Twitter all day about how bad Chapek is. And I think that's just so ineffective. And that's really, if you guys watched the Imagineering story on Disney Plus, when Kim Irvine and a lot of these Imagineers were talking about how the fans, like they don't even know what to do anymore with the fans because everything they do, it's just constant, like screaming and yelling at them. And it's like, it's almost like they just tuned it out. And that's sad. That's really sad because I think Disney's biggest fans should have a big say in what goes on with the company. And unfortunately, they're not, because a lot of fans just want to kind of get into the mud instead of being constructive, and that's really unfortunate, I think.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
So, but we'll see. It's interesting times. I will link the WDWNT article about the booing and all that down below. You guys can definitely check that out. We're going to go ahead and close out this discussion. I'll start off with Mr. Disney Family Man 23, then work my way down to Dre. George, how can everyone at home find you on social media?
Absolutely. You can find me on my own YouTube channel at Disney Family Man 23. You could also find me on Twitter at Disney George. And I'm also part of Orange Grove 55's channel with Citrus Corner. You could definitely check that out as well. And we got a lot more content coming your way. So definitely keep an eye out for that.
Yeah. And don't forget to check out George's Instagram for his bikini pics. They're great.
Yes.
Jesus. All right.
Especially the back end with the big orange slice as the smiley face.
Oh, man.
Oh, man.
Well, thank you for leaving me with that imagery. That's going to be good.
And Mr. Freshly Squeezed, where can everybody at home find you, sir?
Best place to find me is at VashGuy on Twitter. Best place to interact with me. It's spelled just like it is right there. And best place to see me is on your channel, Orange Go 55 at Freshly Squeezed. Your source for just news and info, squeezed fresh right from the grove. That's the best place to see me. Now, also too, I'll give you a link to the to Walt Disney World Newsday's response, Tom Corliss's response on his video. Cool. I think that's also very fascinating, and I think our viewers can get a kick out of that as well.
Now, that's a video response?
Well, yeah. So it's part of his Walt Disney World News Today YouTube kind of weekly segment. So we'll include that. I'll
include that in the description. Absolutely, yeah. DM that to me, Vash. I will definitely include that. So I'll do the article and the video down below.
You got it.
And before we go, really quick, at the time of this recording, it's a special someone's birthday. It's the Big Cheese himself. Turned 93 today, 93. Mr. Mickey Mouse.
93 doesn't look a day over 92. Good looking. Mm-hmm. No, that's fantastic. I can't wait for Mickey's big 100. That's gonna be crazy.
That's gonna be a great celebration.
Yep, absolutely. Well, thank you guys for joining me today, as always. And George, it was great having you back, dude.
Thanks for having me back on. It's great to be back in the discussion panel, and look forward to having many more with you fellas.
Thank you both. And thank you all for watching. Comment down below. I know you guys have comments and opinions on this topic. So comment down below. We love hearing from you. Rogue Disney, Dwayne, Aaliyah, all you guys. You guys are fantastic. Thank you so much. And have a wonderful, wonderful day. Bye-bye.